Sunset Overdrive completely sucks. I mean, the Xbox One has been lacking so many games, and it really doesn't have any killer apps at the moment. But now that Sunset Overdrive has been released, and the game just came out yesterday, it came out on October 28, 2014. And it's an Xbox One exclusive, basically published by Microsoft, and it was developed by Insomniac. Sunset Overdrive has the lowest scores I've ever seen. I mean, this has the most disappointing pile of crap scores on Metacritic. Right now, it's got a 7.6 on Metacritic on the user score, so the user's 7.6, and a freaking basically abysmal 82. This thing has an 82 Metascore, according to the official aggregate Metascore, Metacritic, critical scores and the professional reviewers. This thing is a pile of garbage. This is a pile of trash. Sunset Overdrive is not a killer app. It's not a must-have title. And if this is the best that the Xbox One has to offer, this is pretty sad. This is really pathetic. Alright, let's take a read at what some of these guys had to say. We're going to take a look at some of these other user scores, because I'm very curious as to all the hype, and people have been talking about Sunset Overdrive, and wow, is it really worth getting an Xbox One at this point? No, absolutely not. It's actually kind of sad that this system is still in existence. I feel bad for the people that purchased this stupid stinking console on day one last year, at launch, and even the people that bought it in the past year. They got nothing to play. They got nothing to freaking put in their system and enjoy. They have no discs, and they have no game experiences that's anything that's worth checking out. The problem with Sunset Overdrive is one huge thing. This game is just a ripoff of Infamous. That's right. Infamous actually came out first, and that's a PlayStation exclusive, only on the PlayStation consoles. So Infamous is, Infamous, you gotta get that for the Sony systems. They tried to copy it with Sunset Overdrive, no less using predominantly the Insomniac. I mean, this Insomniac created Sony games, so it's practically Microsoft totally stealing not just the ideas, but the actual development, the developers themselves of Sony. So it shows you how desperate Microsoft is for any type of game that people might, actually want to check out. They gotta go and steal another developer or, some sort of game creators from another company that had some exclusive games created for the other company. So they gotta steal them. How pathetic is that? That's just embarrassing. You don't hear of other companies doing that. You don't hear of Sony doing it. They don't go stealing frickin' Bungie, or, they're not stealing other developers. Nintendo doesn't really do that. I've never really heard of them doing anything like that. They develop their own games. They got their own frickin' development team, and even second-party teams that do it. Anyway, taking a look at the meta user score, Enforcer 122 gave it a 0, a 0 out of 10. Pretty much just a child's version of Infamous. Yeah, it's a ripoff of Infamous. Short campaign, repetitive gameplay with very limited story choices or dialogue choices. Could have been better. It could have been better. I mean, of course it could have been better. This game feels like a cheap ripoff of other games that, they try to make it open world, they try to make it some type of open world third-person shooter experience, but it's really nothing special. They try to, wall run, and using the zip lines, and grind rails, and navigating around the Sunset City, and it's really nothing special. Again, a cheap Infamous clone, a cheap Infamous wannabe type of game, and it's really nothing special. It's not impressive, and it's actually kind of pathetic at the low scores it's getting. it's not really stylish. It's really not that colorful if you think about it. You know what I mean? It's really not that, like the color doesn't really stand out. Everything is just kind of bland and boring to look at. The more I think about it, I mean, it's certainly not as colorful as other games. And you take a look at games like Yoshi's Island or something like that. Even games from like back in the 90s. Take a look at the Super Nintendo games and the Sonic games for the Sega systems. They also have way more colorful environments and graphics than this pile of garbage. And yeah, the characters are undercooked, predictable humor, thin plot, poor presentation in terms of the story, and non-challenging gameplay. Non-challenging, yeah. This game has no freaking challenge. It's completely easy. It's way too easy. It's a casual, crappy game. It's one of these cheap games aimed towards little kids, dumbed down. Children kiddified crap. Sunset overfail, and you know what? Sunset overhype. That's what it should be called. Sunset overhyped. By the way, those are according to game trailers. So, game trailers basically said all those things. So it's not like this is game trailers we're talking about. This is an actual reviewer that does it professionally. So, Velvet Meds gave it a 0 out of 10. Boring and repetitive, bad humor. The traversal sucks because it's on rails. It's like a very casual and accessible version of other better games. Short, tacked-on co-op. Bad story, too much boring range combat. It's really not worth it. Oh yeah, this is just a cheap, crappy game for, it's a crappy ripoff. It's a crappy hack game. It's a hack version of like an Infamous or even something like, what was it, a Prototype, a game like that. Sterling1712 gave it a 0 again, another 0. Don't really see what the fuss is all about. It just reminds me of the old Dead Rising games, only sped up slightly. Then again, I've only played a few hours. It just seems like it's gonna get boring really fast. Yeah, those open world games, a lot of like, characters on screen, and there's kind of like an element, an action element, and Kujaligula gave it a 0. It's a direct copy of Infamous. Jet Set Radio is repetitive and ridiculous. It's a simple shooter disguised as colors, monotone, and totally forgettable. It's a poor attempt to sandbox copy elements from several games, being the worst of these. Graphically boring, colored blocks, annoying characters everywhere. And FPS Steve gave it a 0 again. The game will get boring after an hour for most people. It's just mediocre at best. Too much aimless grinding on bars and wires is just poorly done. It makes the game feel more like a bad Tony Hawk with guns along with poorly designed enemies. Avoid. Yeah, I mean, it's... They try to be quirky, but it really is aimed towards 10 to 16-year-old age group, maybe even younger than that. It's just for stupid... pathetic millennials. Not even millennials, but it's like, what would you call this generation of gamers that kind of grew up in the 2000s? They never grew up in the 90s. They never grew up in the 80s. They're like kids that were born in like year 2000, 2000, and after that, like 2003, 2004, maybe 2007. Like just young kids, impressionable kids that have no fucking idea about what, they don't really have much experience, so they see something like Sunset overhype, and they kind of fall for it because, they haven't played much games, so this is kind of like their first experiences, and maybe they haven't played Infamous, they haven't played Prototype, they haven't played those older games, and even games in the past, games like the Jet Set Radios and Hulk Ultimate Destruction, and those very, very good games, but that's the games that Sunset Overhype is trying to steal ideas from. So they don't see the evolution of the gameplay, and they don't see the roots of Sunset Overhype, and the fact that this is just a hack, hack game. Video gamer. This is video gamer. So we're moving to the Metascore users, not user score, but the Metacritic scores. Video gamer gave it a 60 out of 100. Sunset Overdrive has some excellent ideas, but its triumphs are sadly suffocated beneath ultra-repetitive mission designs and unsatisfying enemy encounters. Yeah, it's unsatisfying, it's way too easy, it's very repetitive because, again, it's not creative. It's a cheap first installment. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a sequel, but this game is just not that fresh, you know? It's no... I mean, I remember when the first Crackdown came out for the 360, and that was like a decent exclusive. It got decent amount of critical scores. It's not even in the same league as something like Crackdown. What Crackdown did for the 360, its impact on the 360, the first Crackdown anyway. Digital Spy gave it a 60. This is not a revolution as far as open world games go. It's more of a compendium of recognizable elements that have been twisted just enough to make them seem new and different for the uninitiated. Again, it's a hack game. It's hackneyed. We've seen this a million. It's typical Microsoft to jack ideas from other people and then basically try to amalgamate it and try to simplify it, dumb it down, and release it for the newer generation. It's just repackaging the same ideas in the fucking past. Sunset Overhype is the Carlos Mencia of the fucking gaming world. Microsoft themselves, they are the Carlos Mencias. They're the Dennis Learys. They're the thieves, the unoriginal hacks that steal other people's material, other people's jokes. You know, for people that don't understand the reference, Carlos Mencia basically stole other people's premises and jokes, and the way he just repackaged it in his own fucking Latin style, you know, his Latino accent and everything. But he stole jokes from guys like Bill Cosby. He said numerous jokes and borrowed from other people. And it's the same way with Microsoft. That's what a hack is. Hackneyed. Redundant. You know, you're doing it because it worked for other games, so you're unoriginal and you're not innovating anything, and you're just jacking ideas from other fucking developers. But you're doing it because it's cheap to do. It's, oh, we've seen it, let's just do a hack version of Infamous, a hack version of these open world style games. Guardian gave it a 60 again, another cheap 60 out of 100. That's a very low score. I would never get a fucking 60 out of 100. I would never buy a game that's 60 out of 100. Sunset Overhype, this according to Guardian, Sunset Overdrive never quite surpasses the chaotic physics of Just Cause, the coherent style of Blood Dragon, or the assured sense of place of GTA 5. And nor does it manage to draw its story and systems toward a coherent, impactful point. In the end, its hero escapes the purgatory of a boring job and does wreak revenge on the judgmental consumers he once served, but the game itself does little to undermine the increasingly overfamiliar open-world establishment. Yeah, it's your typical open-world garbage. I mean, we've seen open-world games forever. We've seen it since, what, the early 2000s when they fucking exploded on the PS2 with GTA 3 and then all of its, you know, clones and wannabes. Sunset Overhype sucks. It's a piece of trash, and that's pretty much it for this episode of the True Gamer Reviews. You know, I mean, when it comes to true gaming, I tell it like it is. You know, this is the truth. This is the God's honest truth, and the reality of it, and making you, pathetic little noobs, understand that this pile of Sunset Overhype garbage, that's all it is. It's just overhype. It's just unoriginal crap resurfacing over and over again, and it's just gonna keep happening too. It's just gonna keep going like a cycle, like a fucking goddamn repetitive loop, because Microsoft has no original ideas. They have no new ideas or innovations. They have no new fucking fresh approaches to games. So they got crap like Sunset Overhype that is just your typical hackneyed, tired formulaic game. The True Gamer Reviews is brought to you by TheReviewSpace. For more videos, check out youtube.com/TheReviewSpace. Thanks for watching. Until next time.